All right, diving into this deep dive on the latest in prostate cancer treatment.
Okay.
We've got a whole stack of recent articles here
Yeah.
from Prostate Warriors.
Okay.
We know you're interested in the absolute cutting edge.
Right.
So think of this as your personalized cheat sheet
Okay.
to the most promising breakthroughs and clinical trials.
Sounds good.
Happening right now.
It's a really dynamic field right now. A lot of different avenues being explored.
So let's talk about immunotherapy.
Sure.
It's been a bit of a tough nut to crack with advanced prostate cancer.
Yes.
Right.
Historically, it has been challenging.
Okay.
Advanced prostate cancer is often called a cold tumor
Right.
because it doesn't typically trigger a strong immune response.
Okay.
But recent research has shed light on why that is.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's causing this coldness in the tumor?
Well, researchers at the Fred Hutch Cancer Center discovered that a specific type of cell
Okay.
called SPP1 plus macrophages
Okay.
is abundant in these tumors. They essentially act as a suppressor of the immune response
Interesting.
within the tumor's environment.
So it's like these macrophages are acting like a shield, protecting the tumor.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And the key to this shielding effect appears to be adenosine signaling.
Adenosine signaling. Okay.
Adenosine is a molecule that can act as a sort of off switch for immune cells.
So these macrophages are sending out these off signals, essentially putting the immune cells to sleep.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that's where Corvus Pharmaceuticals comes in.
Okay.
They've developed a drug called ciforadenant,
Ciforadenant.
which blocks the receptor that receives these off signals.
So ciforadenant is like an alarm clock waking up those sleepy immune cells.
Precisely.
Wow, like that.
And the initial clinical trials have shown real promise,
Oh, good.
especially when ciforadenant is combined with another immunotherapy drug called atezolizumab.
Solazumab.
They've seen a much higher response rate with this combination.
That's really encouraging.
It is.
But how do doctors know which patients are most likely to benefit from this kind of combination therapy?
Well, researchers have identified a specific gene signature
Right.
called the adenosine gene signature.
Oh.
That can be used to predict which tumors have high levels of adenosine signaling.
So this signature can help doctors identify the patients who would be the best candidates
Exactly.
for treatment with ciforadenant. So for you listening, this means potentially having a new immunotherapy option.
Right.
That could be particularly effective if you have the adenosine gene signature. It sounds like immunotherapy is really gaining traction in prostate cancer treatment. But what else is out there beyond immunotherapy? What other exciting avenues are researchers exploring?
Well, one area that's generating a lot of interest is precision radiotherapy.
Precision radiotherapy. That sounds intriguing. Can you break that down for us?
Essentially, it involves delivering radiation very precisely to the tumor, minimizing damage to the surrounding healthy tissue.
So it's like using a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer.
Exactly.
Got it.
And one promising example of this is a radiopharmaceutical called 177-Lu-dodorosapatamab.
Whoa.
It's often shortened to TLX591.
TLF 591.
This drug works by targeting a protein called PSMA,
Okay.
which is found on the surface of prostate cancer cells.
So it's like a guided missile homing in on those cancer cells.
Yes, that's a good analogy.
I like that.
And there's a large global phase 3 clinical trial called ProstACT Global,
Okay.
currently underway to assess how effective this treatment is.
Right.
They're looking at things like overall survival
Right.
and how long it takes for the cancer to progress.
That's really promising.
Oh,
So we've talked about attacking the cancer directly with immunotherapy and precision radiotherapy.
right.
But what about approaches that focus on delaying the need for more aggressive treatments?
There's some interesting research in that area as well,
Okay.
particularly in the context of metastatic castration-resistant prostate cancer, or MCRPC.
MCRPC.
A clinical trial called MedCare looked at something called progression-directed therapy.
Now, for someone like me who isn't a doctor, can you explain what progression-directed therapy actually means?
Sure. So in MCRPC,
Okay.
the cancer has spread beyond the prostate
Right.
and isn't responding to hormone therapy.
Okay.
Progression-directed therapy uses targeted radiation
Oh, okay.
to treat specific areas of the cancer that are showing signs of growth
Right.
while the patient continues with their systemic therapy.
So it's a more targeted approach,
Uh-huh.
aiming to control the cancer's growth without resorting to more aggressive treatments right away.
That's right.
And what did the Medcare trial show?
They found that this approach was able to delay the need for more aggressive treatment for a median of 17 months,
Wow.
which is quite significant.
Yeah.
And importantly, it had very low toxicity, meaning fewer side effects for the patients.
That's fantastic. 17 months is a long time.
It is.
And minimizing side effects is always a top priority. It seems like this approach could really make a difference in the lives of patients.
Mm.
But we know that sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected places.
Right.
Is there anything new happening in the realm of, say, diet or lifestyle changes that could impact prostate cancer?
You might be surprised to hear this, but researchers at City of Hope
Okay.
have been studying the effects of white button mushrooms on the immune system.
Mushrooms. Now, that's not something you hear every day. Tell me more.
It may seem unusual,
Yeah.
but they've discovered that white button mushrooms seem to boost the immune response,
Oh?
specifically by targeting a type of cell called myeloid-derived suppressor cells, or MDSCs.
Now, remind me, MDSCs, those are the ones that suppress the immune system, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And white button mushrooms appear to reduce the number of these MDSCs,
Interesting.
making it harder for the cancer to grow.
Wow.
They've had promising results in preclinical studies using mice,
Okay.
and they're currently running a phase 2 human trial that's showing positive changes in the immune system.
So, while we're waiting for the final results, maybe adding some extra mushrooms to our meals isn't such a bad idea. We've talked about diet, but what about exercise?
Yeah.
Any news on that front?
There's a fascinating study looking at a technique called whole body electromyostimulation, or WBEMS.
WBEMS, all right.
For cancer patients.
WBEMS, that sounds pretty intense. What exactly is it?
It's basically a way to stimulate muscle contractions using electrical impulses.
Okay.
Think of it like a supercharged workout.
Okay. So they're essentially zapping your muscles to make them work harder.
Right.
And how does this relate to cancer?
They had patients with advanced prostate or colorectal cancer
Right.
participate in a 12-week program of WBEMS training.
Right.
And what they found was that the serum,
Okay.
or the liquid part of the blood collected from these patients after the WBEMS training,
Right.
actually inhibited the growth and even killed prostate and colon cancer cells in the lab.
Wow. So the supercharged workout is actually producing something in the body that can fight cancer cells. That's pretty amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
And what's even more interesting is that this effect seems to be specific to cancer cells. The serum didn't harm healthy cells,
Wow.
which suggests that WBEMS might be a way to target cancer cells very selectively.
That's incredible. So it's not just about staying fit. It's like our muscles are producing their own cancer-fighting agents.
That's the current thinking. And to confirm this connection,
Okay.
they did experiments where they used electrical pulses to stimulate muscle cells in the lab, mimicking the effects of exercise.
So they were basically giving those muscle cells a workout in a petri dish.
Exactly.
And what did they find?
The results were very similar to what they saw with the serum from the WBEMS-trained patients.
Oh, wow.
The muscle cells that were electrically stimulated also released substances that were able to kill both prostate and colon cancer cells.
It seems like whether you're actually working out or simulating exercise in the lab, making those muscles work hard
Yes.
can have a real impact on fighting cancer.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really fascinating here
It
is
adds another dimension to the importance of exercise in cancer treatment. It's not just about overall health and well-being,
right.
but potentially a direct impact on tumor growth. And researchers have actually delved deeper to understand what's happening at the genetic level.
Oh, that's interesting. They're looking at the genes involved in these anti-cancer effects. What have they found?
They've analyzed the gene expression in prostate cancer cells that were treated with either the serum from the WBEMS-trained patients or the medium from the electrically stimulated muscle cells.
Wow.
And they found a number of interesting changes.
Like what? Give us the specifics.
For example, they found that a gene called CCNE1,
All right.
which is involved in cell cycle progression,
Okay.
was downregulated.
Okay.
This could potentially slow down or even stop the growth of the cancer cells.
Okay, so that's 1 point for team exercise. What else did they discover?
They also found that the receptor for growth hormone, known as GHR,
Right.
was also downregulated. This is significant
Right.
because growth hormone is often implicated in tumor progression.
So by reducing the number of receptors for growth hormone, you're essentially cutting off the fuel supply for the tumor.
Exactly. And they also found that another gene involved in cancer development, called WNT10A,
Right.
was significantly suppressed.
That's great news. Any other positive changes?
Yes, they observed an increase in the activity of a gene called CDKN1B,
CDKN1B.
which acts as a brake on cell cycle progression. So that's another mechanism that could help slow down the growth of the cancer.
It's like we're throwing everything we've got at these cancer cells, slowing them down, cutting off their resources, really putting them on the defense.
Right.
What about cell death? Did they find any changes in the genes related to that?
Yes, they found that two genes that are essential for apoptosis, or programmed cell death,
Right.
were upregulated. These genes are called CASP3 and CASP7.
So we're not only slowing down the cancer's growth, but we're also activating its self-destruct mechanism.
That's the idea.
Good.
And this was further confirmed by seeing an increase in the cleavage of PRP, a protein that's involved in the apoptosis process.
So all in all, it seems like stimulating those muscles, whether through actual exercise or in the lab,
Right.
can have a profound impact on how cancer cells behave.
It's a very exciting area of research.
Yeah.
It's clear that exercise can trigger a complex cascade of events at the genetic and molecular level,
Right.
ultimately leading to the inhibition of cancer cell growth and the promotion of cell death.
This is truly groundbreaking stuff. It really underscores the power of exercise, not just for overall health, but as a potential weapon in the fight against cancer.
It is.
But we know there are even more advances to discuss. So let's shift gears a bit. What other developments are on the horizon in prostate cancer treatment?
There's some interesting data emerging about a drug called apalutamide.
Now, just to refresh our memory, what exactly does apalutamide do?
It's an androgen receptor inhibitor. Basically, it blocks the action of male hormones,
Okay,
which can fuel prostate cancer growth.
got it. So what's new with apalutamide?
A recent real-world data analysis
Okay.
suggested that apalutamide might actually be more effective at prolonging survival than another commonly used androgen receptor inhibitor called abiraterone acetate.
Abiraterone acetate, okay.
This is particularly relevant for patients with metastatic, castration-sensitive prostate cancer.
Now, you mentioned real-world data. What exactly does that mean?
It means that this data was collected from patients being treated in everyday clinical settings,
Right.
not in the controlled environment of a clinical trial.
Got it.
This type of data is valuable because it gives us a more realistic picture of how a treatment performs in a typical patient population.
So it's like seeing how the drug performs in the wild, so to speak.
Exactly.
But are the results from this real-world data and analysis conclusive?
While the results are promising,
Right.
they do need to be confirmed with further research, ideally through more controlled clinical trials.
So it's something to keep an eye on. It's exciting to hear about these potential new options. What other breakthroughs are on the horizon?
Do you remember AlphaFold?
Yes.
That AI tool that made such a splash in the world of protein structure prediction?
Of course, that was a major breakthrough.
It was.
But how does that connect to prostate cancer treatment?
Researchers at Georgia Tech have taken AlphaFold's technology and created a new tool called AF2 complex.
AF2 complex.
This tool goes a step further and can predict how different proteins interact with each other,
Interesting.
including those involved in antibody-antigen interactions.
Okay, I'm following. Antibody-antigen interactions are key to how immunotherapy works, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
By being able to predict these interactions accurately, AF2 complex could significantly speed up the development of new antibody therapies,
Okay.
especially for cancer.
So it's like having an AI-powered assistant helping to design better and more effective immunotherapies.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And it also opens the door for more personalized treatment approaches.
So,
By understanding the specific antigens present in a patient's tumor, we could potentially use AF2 complex to identify the most effective antibodies for that individual.
that's amazing. It's like tailor-making immunotherapy treatments for each patient.
It is.
But let's not forget about other approaches beyond immunotherapy.
Right.
What else is brewing in the research world?
A company called Onkelis Pharma is doing some very interesting preclinical work,
Okay.
targeting a recently discovered pathway called the Elaine pathway.
Okay, Elaine pathway. I'm not familiar with that one.
Right.
What's so special about it?
The Elaine pathway is fascinating because it seems to trigger a very specific type of cell death called immunogenic cell death.
Immunogenic cell death. That sounds interesting.
It is.
What does that mean?
It means that when cancer cells die through this pathway, they release signals that alert the immune system to their presence, which can then mount a more effective attack against the remaining cancer cells.
Right.
And what's even more exciting is that the Elaine pathway appears to be very selective for cancer cells, sparing healthy cells.
So it's like a self-destruct button specifically for cancer cells, and it also sends up a flare to the immune system to come and clean up the mess.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I like that.
And Achilles Pharma has developed a therapeutic called NEU0002
NEU0002.
that specifically targets this pathway.
What are they seeing with NEU002 so far?
It's still in the preclinical stages, meaning it's being tested in the lab and in animal models. But the initial data is very encouraging.
Oh, good.
They've shown that it can effectively kill cancer cells from a variety of tumor types,
Wow,
including ovarian cancer.
that's remarkable. So this Elaine pathway could potentially be a target for treatments that work across different types of cancer.
It's certainly a possibility. And it highlights the fact that there are still many unexplored avenues in cancer treatment, with the potential for breakthroughs that could benefit patients with a wide range of cancers.
Wow, that's incredible. It feels like we're really entering a new era in cancer treatment with so much happening on so many fronts. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
And I know our listeners are eager to hear your expert perspective on what all of this means. So let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. What are your key takeaways from all of these developments?
What I find most encouraging is a sheer variety of approaches being explored. It's
Yeah.
not just about finding a single magic bullet,
Right.
but about understanding how different therapies can work together.
Right.
We're seeing progress in immunotherapy,
Yeah.
targeted therapies,
Mhm.
precision radiotherapy,
Yeah.
and even lifestyle factors like diet and exercise.
Like we're building a whole arsenal of weapons to fight this disease.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's really exciting is the growing potential for personalized medicine. Tools like AF2 complex and biomarkers like the adenosine gene signature are bringing us closer to being able to tailor treatments to each individual patient's needs.
That's a really powerful message of hope.
It is.
It's not just about finding a cure. It's about finding the right cure for you.
Absolutely.
But with so much research happening, it can be hard to keep up.
It can.
If you had to distill all of this down to a few key takeaways,
Sure.
what would you say are the most important things for our listener to remember?
I think the most important thing is to not lose hope.
Yeah.
The field of prostate cancer treatment is evolving rapidly,
Right.
and there are a lot of promising developments on the horizon.
Okay.
Secondly, I would encourage you to be proactive.
Right.
Talk to your doctor about the latest clinical trials and treatment options.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to ask questions and advocate for yourself.
Right.
And finally, remember that lifestyle factors can play a role.
Yeah.
Things like diet and exercise may not be a cure in and of themselves, but they can potentially support your overall health and well-being.
Those are all really important points.
They are.
It's not just about the science. It's about empowering patients to take an active role in their own care.
Exactly.
But I know it can feel overwhelming trying to stay on top of all the latest research.
It can be a lot.
Are there any specific resources you would recommend for our listener?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The website Prostate Warriors, where we got a lot of the information we've been discussing today,
Right.
is a great resource for staying up to date on breakthroughs and clinical trials.
Right.
Organizations like the Prostate Cancer Foundation and the American Cancer Society
Right.
also offer valuable resources and support for patients and their families.
That's really helpful.
It is.
Knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
And having access to reliable information is key.
Right.
You know, as we've been talking about all these incredible advances,
Yeah.
it's got me thinking,
Okay.
what if we could design the perfect clinical trial based on everything we've learned today?
Right.
What would that look like?
That's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
I think the first step would be to have a really robust way to identify
Yeah.
which patients are most likely to benefit from each specific treatment.
Right.
We've talked about biomarkers like the adenosine gene signature,
Huh.
and those are essential for personalizing the approach
Okay.
and ensuring we're not just throwing therapies at the wall and seeing what sticks.
So starting with precision patient selection.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does.
What would come next in this dream trial?
I'd want to explore combinations of therapies
Okay.
that attack the cancer from multiple angles. For example, combining an immunotherapy like ciforadenant
Right.
with a targeted radiopharmaceutical like TLX591.
Uh-huh.
We might even incorporate lifestyle interventions like WBEMS.
Wow. A multi-pronged attack.
Right.
It's like assembling an elite team of cancer fighters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, We'd be carefully monitoring each patient's response along the way,
Right.
using advanced imaging techniques and blood tests to track how the tumor is reacting.
So with constant feedback and adjustments as needed.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's about being dynamic and responsive,
Uh-huh.
tailoring the treatment plan in real time based on the data we're seeing.
Right.
And throughout this process, we'd prioritize minimizing side effects
Yeah.
and maintaining the patient's quality of life.
That's so important.
It is.
It's not just about extending life. It's about
Yeah.
living that life well.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And all the while, we'd be collecting valuable data on how these different therapies interact,
Right.
which would help us refine our understanding of the underlying mechanisms of prostate cancer.
So it's not just about finding a cure for today. It's about building a foundation for even better treatments tomorrow.
Precisely.
Wow.
This dream trial wouldn't just be about treating patients.
Right.
It would be about advancing our knowledge and paving the way for future breakthroughs.
That's an incredibly inspiring vision.
It is.
It really highlights how far we've come in the fight against prostate cancer.
We have.
It's not just about one single discovery.
Right.
It's about the convergence of different approaches, the power of personalized medicine,
Yeah.
and the unwavering commitment of researchers and clinicians.
Well said.
Yeah.
And we can't forget the patients themselves.
Right.
Their resilience, their willingness to participate in clinical trials,
Uh-huh.
and their unwavering hope for a brighter future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to our listener and to everyone out there facing this challenging disease,
Yeah.
know that you are not alone.
You're not.
There's a whole community of researchers, clinicians, and fellow patients fighting alongside you.
Absolutely.
And while there's still work to be done,
There is.
the progress we've discussed today is truly remarkable.
It is.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions,
Yes.
and never give up hope.
Never give up hope.
That's a perfect note to end on.
It is.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the latest in prostate cancer treatment.
My pleasure.
We hope you found it informative and empowering.
I hope so.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay strong.